This is Just Ask George, exploring the universe of corporate finance and capital formation for your business enterprise, with merchant banker George Lovato Jr. and your host, David Wolf. Welcome back to Just Ask George. David Wolf here with the infamous George Lovato Jr., head dude at BH Capital, the thought leader in capital formation and corporate finance. How are you, George?
I'm good, and I'm with my co-dude on a Friday again.
Absolutely.
When we do the shows, and we've got kind of a robust program planned today.
We are robust thinkers of corporate finance and capital formation. And we're glad you're with us. We're going to talk a little bit. You know, I'm an affiliate banker. I get inbounds. I get calls from folks looking for money. And often the story, the narrative they have is, why me? So we're going to talk a little bit.
Why can't I get a loan? Why won't people listen to me? Why don't people see what I see in my vision? Why? And they are the victim. They are the victim. They make themselves the victim by taking that attitude. And so I think it's a good subject matter.
So much of what we do is teaching. It's instructional. I've said that maybe it's 85%. That's debatable. But much of what we do is coaching and guidance. And there's this emotional framework that a business owner comes to us with around forming capital. So one of the foundations we have to sometimes rearrange a little bit is how they're thinking about themselves in relation to getting capital and not becoming the victim, and also understanding why it's not happening in their previous efforts to form.
Exactly. I think when I hear that, you know, in people's voices when they ask that question, why can't I get a loan? To me, that says several things. One is that they really aren't asking the question and finding out, or doing the research to find out why. They're not teaching, they're not learning surrounding that question. They're not answering it themselves. They see themselves more as a victim than they do the business person at that point. When I think that there's so much information that will tell them, aside from what we can teach them, there's so much information out there that will give them various analytical tools to say, this is why you may not be lendable. Okay?
Right.
And the flip side of that is, once you've got that information, what do you do with it? That doesn't necessarily mean that you can go back to the bank, because the bank still may not be the answer. You know, they may have their own constrictions. You know, every banker I know that really doesn't want to bank anymore, or play banker, you know, says the regulators don't let us do that. Well, no, what it is, it's more internal policy, and it is a caution that they take so that you know, by not making a loan, in most cases they say, well, if I don't make it, then I can't be criticized. That's really how they're, you know, it's really thinking from the rear of the decision.
It's emotional for them as bankers as well.
Right.
In other words, their job security,
and there are
the risk profiles of...
There are some things that the regulators do in terms of analyzing a specific loan that make it difficult for banks to keep that loan booked and have it looking healthy. You know, sometimes the reserves that they make banks take on certain types of loans are a little restrictive. But there are other ways that the bank can overcome that. But that's a whole other show. But the idea is that the why me question really should be, okay, not why me, but how do I fix this?
Well, it has to be proactive.
Yeah.
They have to manage the process of capital formation just like they manage their business itself, and they've got to answer these questions. And you said it earlier before we were on the air. It's about conquering that question too. So many of them are really distracted with the business of the business, and they haven't taken time to think about, how does this look to an external source of capital?
Absolutely.
And how do I frame it so that I can succeed?
Financial statements, financial reporting.
The third-party piece?
I just looked at you know, and this happens so often. The guy was asking me, why me? Why can't I get a loan? And I'm looking at his balance sheet, and right at the top, it shows a negative cash balance of several $1,000s. I mean, it was like $6,000 or $8,000. Negative cash. Well... Okay. For starters, Okay, that's, why me? Well, that might be a real turnoff, that either your account is overdrafted or there could be several different ways it could be caused. And the other thing is, you look at a tax return and the guy, for the last 4 years has continually filed returns that show losses. Well, it's my 250-word Sermon on the Mount that I always give every client about tax returns is, look, even if you pay a little, pay tax, because the accountant that has advised you, we don't owe any money.
Yeah.
We're gonna get money back.
Well, that's their objective is to owe as little as possible. Fine.
And in the process of doing that, guess what happens? The lender looks at it and says, not interested. You're losing money on your tax returns. You haven't made any money in 3 years. So what kind of capacity could you have to service debt? Okay, so that's another answer to the why me question. I mean, there's so many of them, but I mean, these are the sort of simple, basic fundamentals that the entrepreneur, the business manager needs to look at in order to ascertain, how do I solve this problem?
Exactly.
So it takes a much more in-depth, a deeper focus into the presentation of the information they're presenting, that are you attractive or aren't you? And the excuse can't always be because you're losing money. Well, I've reinvested in the business. No. Well, then there's several other treatments you could have engaged in, such as capitalizing certain expenses that would have had an impact on your P&L to the positive, but you chose not to investigate how I can work in the accounting and financial reporting environment to kind of correct that course and make it less impactful.
I was going to say, I know from working with you, this is a lot of what you do when under CFCA. When we get into working with the client, getting in under the hood of their financials, I mean, I've seen you completely restructure the way things are being booked. That's a big piece.
It's something that we do more often than we can count. It's almost in every engagement.
Yeah.
And so I go back to this point. Let's not ask why me. Let's ask, how do I fix this?
How do I fix this? How
do I get involved more proactively in my presentation of my financial statements, my business plan, my projections, my tax returns? You need to understand these things. You need to be educated. You can't just say, well, my accountant takes care of that. Whenever I hear that, that instantly is an alarm, because that tells me either they don't know anything about financial reporting, accounting, and bookkeeping, and they just shove it off, but it also tells me they really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they need to run their business by the numbers, and they need to know
exactly
where am I at on the balance sheet, where am I at in my performance on the P&L.
There it is.
There it is. We know, too, it's external and internal in terms of how the business owner experiences all of this, the why question. Some of it they can control vis-a-vis everything we've talked about so far. It might be good to do a show just basic about, here's the balance sheet and here's what these things mean.
And now that we have this green screen behind us, actually we're in Dubai today, ladies and gentlemen, but we could flash up a balance sheet and show you've always wanted to do the before and after of a client. And
if we can do it in a way that is consumable in a video form, and not put them to sleep, I think it'd be.
We have a tendency. We got to be careful.
Or we
that.
may go to sleep.
We try to keep you awake, folks. But,
right. No, it's just, or I may fall asleep. But I think it would be good just at that high level view. Now we know that when you work with a client, when BH Capital works with a client, we're going to peel the layers back on the balance sheet, on primarily, and then the P&L to really reveal the questions that you may not know the answers to. The answer to the question, why me? Why can I not get financing? So
let's turn that into how, and let's turn that into, let's learn more about how we present ourselves that makes us a more appealing customer for lenders, investors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the key. That's the takeaway from today's show.
All right, good. BH Capital LTD.com.
Another good show, obstaclecoursebooks.com, and of course the
Just
YouTube
as George.
channel, the BH Capital Limited channel on YouTube. Go there. I think we're having another good week. I think we're close to 1.5 million in views right now.
Excelente.
Yeah.
It's good to know we're delivering good content that people can use in their small business.
People are liking the show, and that makes us happy. Thank you for watching.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Thanks,
All right,
George.
Bud. Be good, man. Bye-bye.
For more information about George Lovato Jr. and BH Capital, visit bhcapitalltd.com. Check out more episodes of Just Ask George at justaskgeorgeradio.com. Just Ask George is produced by Steve Garth and is a production of BH Capital Ltd. All rights reserved.